Good morning at 7 o'clock with a look at your news headlines. I'm Matt Neely on 1030 The Voice. Tucson Little League families say city parks don't feel safe for kids to play ball. Parents report finding needles, armed individuals, and people passed out in bathrooms at fields from Freedom Park to Udall Park. Adam Wright, who leagues Cactus Empire Little League, says players are warned not to enter restrooms alone, and calls to police often take more than 30 minutes for a response. City leaders point to recent ordinances banning camping in parks and washes, and some officials are pushing to add more Tucson police officers. Pima County Attorney Laura Conover continues to defend her plea deal with an armed man who intended to shoot up a school. Tucson police refuted her August 21st claim that they spoiled a case against Daniel Hollander by not properly Mirandizing the suspect by providing video evidence that they did. On the heels of a school shooting in Minnesota, Conover again defended the plea deal, saying concerns about how Hollander was questioned put a felony conviction at risk, noting even detectives had doubts about admissibility. Tucson police dispute her claim, saying they never received objections. Hollander, who was on a school campus with a loaded gun and knife, said he intended to shoot children and was sentenced to 18 months in prison plus probation. The Pima County Sheriff's Department has released new details about a deadly rescue on the Linda Vista hiking trail. Deputies say 2 women were found injured on Saturday. 53-year-old Lynn Lagergren was pronounced dead at the scene, while a woman in her late 60s remains in critical condition at a local hospital. Sheriff Chris Nano says the women were inexperienced hikers and foul play is not suspected. Multiple fire, state, and search and rescue crews worked together to locate the women a short distance apart. Finally, the Vail Unified School District is expanding its early college program, giving high school students a head start while saving families money on tuition. Students take classes at Pima Community College for free, earning credits that can count towards an associate degree before graduation. Program Director Rayleigh May, a first-generation college student, said it helps break cycles of poverty by reducing future debt. The program is open beyond Vail, with students from Sahuarita, Benson, and Red Rock also enrolling. Families say it's opening doors to new opportunities. Tucson weather, increasing clouds today, winds out of the east, a high near 100 degrees, and a 20% chance of thunderstorms. Overnight low 73, a 30% chance of storms tomorrow, and a high of 97 degrees. Later on this week, daytime highs in the low to mid-90s and chances of rain increasing Thursday and Friday. It's 82 degrees with a few clouds up above. Beautiful morning out there. Well, it's Tuesday. It's time for Civic Engagement on the Morning Voice with your host, Ted Maxwell.
Good morning and welcome to the Morning Voice. It's Tuesday, September 2nd. I hope everyone had a great Labor Day weekend, and I appreciate you joining us this morning. I've got Matt Neely behind the glass, keeping me on time and on target. Matt, I hope you had a great weekend.
Had a wonderful weekend. Thank you. Yeah. Saw F1, the movie, which was really good.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Enjoyed that, yes.
Did you make it to the game Saturday night?
We did make it to the game.
All right.
Had a fun time.
So you were there in person. I was out of town. I missed it. Watched a lot of the highlights, a lot of the feedback. My wife had watched the whole game. She was pretty excited about some of the things she saw, but she was a little worried too. What were your thoughts?
Let's see. It's kind of hard to tell. It's better than starting the season against NAU.
I agree.
So for a starting game,
Hawaii won a game last week. They last second field goal beat Stanford.
Yeah. It's good to see them starting against better competition. Although I shouldn't say that. NAU beat them a few years ago. Beat the Cats. But the defense limited them to 2 field goals.
6 turnovers.
Yeah.
6 takeaways. If the defense can be one of those where we bend but don't break type defenses, because they gave up a lot of yards initially, especially in the first half to Hawaii, but every time they need to make a critical play, they did, and there was a lot of emotion and enthusiasm, it seemed, from the defense.
Yeah, Hawaii was doing kind of what they needed to do, was just hold on to the ball and rattle off minutes. So I mean, their strategy was pretty clear early. They just played a ground, they just wanted to kind of keep control of the ball. And the first half stats really bore it out. I don't know what the final stats, but in the first half, Hawaii had the ball way longer than Arizona.
It was like 21 minutes compared to 8.
Playing a little field position ball, but unfortunately for us as fans, Arizona turned it on and won easily, and so hey, that's a good start.
It is. I hope the 1-0 record will bring out more fans. How was the turnout?
I didn't see what it looked about. Average, maybe between 35 and maybe edging up to 40. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. It didn't look particularly empty. It didn't look particularly full. It looked like a fairly good crowd.
Well, that's good. And did you get to participate in any of the new tailgating activities that the university's done?
And I forget who the guy was. It's terrible. Anyway, they had a country artist playing before the game on Bear Down Field, which is that field right just immediately north, adjacent to the stadium. And so we got Drew Cooper. That's his name. Yeah, I knew who it was. I just couldn't pull his name out of my head. But it was Drew Cooper played, and it was a lot of fun. I think the Gin Blossoms are going to play before a game later this season. So it's kind of
Roger
fun.
Klein and the Peacemakers is lined up for one of them as well.
Maybe it's Roger Klein and not the Gin. Anyway, whoever. It's a nice addition to the festivities, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely there was a lot of changes going on out there. Obviously, the athletic department has done some makeovers on some issues to get them going, but it was good to see the Cats get off to a 1-0 start.
Indeed.
Kind of, as a not necessarily a huge Bill Belichick fan, it wasn't his North Carolina team got destroyed last night. It was a big weekend of college football.
Indeed.
And now we go into the first week of pro football. So this is a time of the year if you're a football fan.
T-Mac, by the way, came out on the field. They recognized him, and he was given a very warm welcome.
Yeah, I heard Tyler Loop was there as well.
I missed him.
And it was impressive
to
see.
52. The Cats had a 52-yarder.
Exactly.
So it was
very
up where they left off.
Very impressive to see that happen and be a good one. And obviously Labor Day, the radio show yesterday was the first day of the Morning Voice. Lydia Aranda ran a best of type show yesterday, I believe.
Yeah.
And that's good to see, but we appreciate everybody joining us 5 days a week, 5 different hosts. Please tune in every morning from 7 to 9. There's a lot of good conversations, some a little more political than others, and we just happen to be one of those. All about getting you encouraged to get engaged. Got to remember, this is a nation of a great nation that we have lots of rights and responsibilities. Our most sacred right is that to vote, but there's also the encouragement to get involved and make it a better place. This country continues to grow in population. There's still people that are always trying to come to the United States, and I think quite often we forget it's because there's so much opportunity, but we've got some responsibilities that we have as well. Looking forward to a great show today. We've got Ben Buehler Garcia, the host of American Warrior Radio, and also one of the dedicated leaders of the 9/11 Tower Challenge. He's going to spend 30 minutes. I think I just saw him walk into the studio, so maybe we can invite him in after this break, Matt. We can, as we discuss a couple things that are going on in Tucson before we get to the show. And then at the top of the 8 o'clock hour, we'll have Karen Cesare, a member of the Central Arizona Water Conservation District, which are the folks who oversee the Colorado River. And what's going on there. Obviously, water's been a huge issue in Arizona, particularly over the last couple of weeks in the Pima County area because of the discussion on data centers.
Right.
And so when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the activities going on in the city of Tucson and some of the things that Matt and I feel pretty strongly about. So
there you go.
Appreciate you joining us for the Morning Voice this morning. Stay with us, and we'll be right back after the break, and we'll be joined by Ben Buehler Garcia as well.
And if you'd like to follow along, 1030 The Voice on YouTube, also 1030 The Voice on Facebook. We'll share the YouTube link over to that. If you'd like to watch the festivities today, we'd be happy to have you there. You can see your voice. All right, we'll be right back. At 12 minutes after 7 o'clock, we'll look at your traffic and weather. I'm Matt Neely on 1030 The Voice. There's an injury crash, Oracle Road at Auto Mall Drive. Traffic incident, Ina at Shannon. And a traffic hazard, Houghton at 22nd Street. Taking a look at your Tucson area freeways, light traffic on I-10 and I-19 in the Tucson metro area. Tucson weather, high today 100 degrees, 20% chance of thunderstorms. Winds out of the east this afternoon, increasing cloudiness as the day goes on. Overnight low 73, 97 for your high tomorrow with a 30% chance of storms. It's 82 degrees under partly cloudy skies. Now let's go back to the morning voice.
Welcome back. Thank you for being with us in the Morning Voice. And that's a little pickup music we need for a Tuesday following a Labor Day weekend. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Matt Neely's going to be behind the glass joining us on this portion of the show. And so is Ben Buehler Garcia, who got up, came in early and said, I got some opportunities.
Good morning, General.
It's always good to see you, Ben. We appreciate you being here. We'll get to the issues we want to talk about at the bottom of the hour.
Well, I just want to say that you've actually got it pretty good here. I mean, when I was over on KQGH, they asked me to sit in for John Justice during the morning drive there, 6 to 9. And a little bit of a different format, but, you had to be there at like 4 in the morning because you had all the call-in, that whatever their news feed was, CBS or AP, whatever. So you had to do all those interviews with 10 or 12 people, calling in from the White House or whatever, get those in the can before you even started the show.
So you don't think I was here at 4 o'clock in the morning getting prepared for this show?
I think Matt might have been. I don't know about you.
Oh, Matt! Every morning I come in, Matt's
I sleep
running.
here. It's okay.
Yes, good times, good times.
If you buy that.
Hey, listen, thanks so much for your shepherding the RTA next to the finish line. I think that's a
It's
huge
not over today.
no, but it could have not gotten this far pretty easily, right?
Absolutely, I agree. I think at the end, it's amazing when you become under pressure. I mean, for years, we've been working on that for 6-7 years, and everybody's been talking about it. All the different municipalities, the mayors, the board of supervisors, everybody was arguing about it, wanting, and I think everybody became way more regionally focused in the last month because of all of a sudden the opportunity that this regional plan that had been supporting our infrastructure for 20 years was about to die. And you saw a lot of all the mayors, bear down, to use the U of A term, and got focused on getting it done. And it wouldn't have happened without them, and it wouldn't have happened without the addition of Michael Ortega.
Yeah, Mike was clearly a bonus dynamic coming in there. But what I really appreciated about the original RTA was that concept of regional cooperation, Ted. And I had great hopes for that, not just for the transportation side of it, but just for more policies in general, that we'd see a more cooperative sort of effort. To some extent that happened. I'd say to a great extent it didn't. But I just want to remind people this is absolutely important. Don't Project Blue this. This is absolutely essential to our community. And it's not a new tax. It's just continuing the existing tax, so people aren't going to notice, a big chunk out of their wallet on this.
It's not going to change the tax rate.
And I'm hearing a lot of confusion out there already about, no more new taxes. It's not a new tax, folks. And if you drive like I did coming into the studio this morning, we need it.
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt we need that one. I want to go back because this is probably a great point to start talking, and we can use this segment for talking regionalism.
Mm-hmm.
The RTA is, in my opinion, the only true regional approach. Back in the day, wastewater was going to be regionally managed by the county, and local water or drinkable water, potable water from the CAP. Plug. We'll have Karen Cesare with me at 8 o'clock hour to talk about the Colorado River. That was going to be managed by the city of Tucson, and now you've got differential water rates. If you live in the city, if you don't. We've kind of lost the focus that that's where it was going to go. And today in the newspaper, there were 2 more op-eds. One that was published by Susan Gray, the president and CEO of Tucson Electric Power and Unisource Energy. Basically, the region's largest electricity provider. But the other one was by a gentleman named Mark Caron, who said Tucson should seriously consider a municipal electric utility. And in it, he cites how well they've run their sewer and how they run their water. But what I think's missing in the entire thing is that's only for Tucson.
Right.
We've proven that water will not be regional in its approach. Electricity, whoever's providing the electricity to the region has to provide it to the region. Can't be a difference between the city of Tucson and Pima County. And that's my fear. One, I don't think the city of Tucson's got the financials to acquire any part of TEP or enough to do it. But since the data center conversation, this has been the drum that's getting beat again. Councilmember Cunningham's all over it. You know, we need a municipal electric utility.
Yeah, Ted, when I first saw the memorandum that came out from the consultant on the concept, I thought it was dead then, because you're right, just financially, there is no way this would work. I mean, they're staring down, what, a $33 million deficit next year. How are you going to pull this off? And I would like to, so I guess I'm thinking about what are some examples of successful regional governments. To me, you know, whether it's successful or not, but you know, Las Vegas and that county come to mind. You know, there's things. Well, let me ask you this: where else do you see where we could undertake a cooperative effort? Would it be in law enforcement, perhaps? Would it be having one municipal law enforcement entity?
I think there's a lot of coordination that occurred between the law enforcement. TPD is always going to have the biggest law enforcement pull, but then you've got the county sheriff. Now we've got a unique situation because so much of Pima County is unincorporated.
Right. Bingo.
So we don't have 36% of Pima County is unincorporated. So first off, that portion of the county really does rely on the water from the city of Tucson. And you heard Councilmember Cunningham said it multiple times. Differential water rates unless you become incorporated. Well, that's not easy to do. We've seen that time and time again.
Doesn't the FBI have a name for that?
I'm thinking, yeah.
Is it just me?
X something, X store. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. What's interesting to me, Ted, is seeing now with the new administration in Washington, and you know he's definitely on a tear, but you're seeing now a lot of these, I'll use the word schemes, are being exposed as to how they just did not work without all that exorbitant federal funding. You know, a lot of these green projects, and how they're not achieving what they were meant to achieve. They wouldn't have ever achieved what they were, you know. And I think about this, you know, local municipal electric company in the same way. Just it's
the challenge becomes where is the community better off? Is it through governmental regulatory control, or is it through the free market? And obviously, well, not obviously, as president of Southern Arizona Leadership Council, representing 159 plus business leaders in the community, I think businesses have a lot more incentive to do things efficiently.
Bingo. As BBG representing BBG, I agree.
It's always easier when you're representing yourself.
Yeah, sometimes I fire myself just for screams and giggles, but
yeah.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And I mean, if you look at the city's track record recently, gosh, folks, do you really want them in charge of your electricity? Honestly, is that something? It gives me pause.
I think and there's a lot of misunderstandings, and this is the tough one. And if the op-ed written today by Susan Gray talked about the electric company, both TPs and the Chamber of Southern Arizona's role in trying to make economic development. Pima County as a whole, I get it. There's a lot of people that don't want to be like Maricopa. But the fact of the matter is their economic growth and development has led to a prosperity of life that they face up in the north, just 90 miles north of us, that we are struggling with to attain. We have one of the highest poverty sections. If you go to the map dashboard, Making Action Possible dashboard, the data is controlled by the University of Arizona. It's repeatable data. It's accurate data. And it shows that not only is the number of jobs in this region going down as of 2023. The number of the poverty level hasn't moved.
And Ted, it doesn't have to be a zero-sum game.
Oh, no,
Why,
absolutely.
why can't we take the good stuff out of Maricopa County that we like, take that and don't leave the rest? Because you're absolutely. I mean, in my day job, I work a lot with housing interest, the home builders, the multifamily folks, and
Definitely an issue that this region's struggling
no
with
question.
right now.
And for even going way back to when I ran for city council, in my vision, affordable housing is basically people have got enough high-paying, good-paying jobs to afford to buy wherever they want. And we've not achieved that. And Ted, we've got a top research university. We've got some of the largest private sector employers in the state. We've got the largest Air Force base, one of the largest Air Force bases in the country. We're 50 miles from our second largest trading partner. We've got sunshine you can sell for days. There is absolutely no reason other than lack of leadership why we should have a 22% poverty rate in this community. It's just, it doesn't pencil out. I mean, if
That might be a little high on the poverty level, but
well,
when
I ran for city council, it was 23%. Now that's been a while ago, but it's still too darn high.
It is. In comparison to Albuquerque, El Paso, and of course some of the map dashboard comparisons, Houston, San Diego, Austin, are no longer what I'd call peer communities, but most of them we're still on the high end of it. We need to figure out a way to create jobs, and the most important thing is good paying jobs.
Agreed.
And unless you're bringing companies into the region, that's going to be very difficult to do.
I'm all, because in my previous life, I was involved in economic development. And there's several aspects. One is hunting the woolly mammoth, trying to score that IBM or that Project Blue or whatever it might be. And that's you always have to be looking at that. Number two is homegrown companies and small businesses here. And the regulatory environment here is not conducive to that, hardly at all. And then one thing I think we've really fallen behind on, we used to be one of the top international trade cities in this state, doing business in international trade. And that seems to have dropped off of everybody's radar. And the opportunities are still there, and not just with Mexico.
Well, there's a USMCA summit that's going to be coming to Tucson next week. It's one that Mayor Romero went and advocated strongly to bring down from Phoenix. They've had two summits up in Phoenix. She was able to get them to bring the third and final one down here. But the whole point of the USMCA, I remember when that was being renegotiated, we were talking about the impact it'd have on all of Arizona, not to mention the country, if we can't get something across. But this region relies on cross-border trade. The country does as well, but this region really relies on cross-border trade. So now any issue with the tariffs, with USMCA, with his reauthorization. I mean, President Trump, when he was in his first term, that was one of his shining, the best, beautiful, biggest trade agreement ever. And now we're talking about, well, we might have to redo this. I'm not sure what's changed, but what I know is the folks down on the border are feeling it.
I can put my suggestion, Ted, it's the cartels, it's the drugs that has replaced his on
focus.
his focus.
You're talking his focus,
absolutely.
not necessarily the trade, the agreement itself, but you're saying it's the cartels and the drug traffic has now become his priority. Where first term, the priority with Mexico was getting a trade agreement.
And again, it doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. We can do. And I was born and raised in Mexico, and it absolutely breaks my heart. I mean, such wonderful, hardworking people, a country with so many resources, and they've been struggling for years. But I would like to see us work more as partners going forward on lots of levels.
I think a lot of people don't even understand the amount that goods and services go back and forth across the border. I mean, any auto that is classified as built in the United States, quite often takes several trips across the border to Mexico because of the labor costs and the ability to get parts and some of the equipment put in the cars. They'll come back, they'll go back across, they'll come back. And so the tariffs on autos, and that's one of the reasons I think President Trump reduced those or took them away completely, because it just was going to hurt
washing machines,
everything.
televisions. It's been years since I toured a maquiladora down there, but I mean, just that's still an opportunity. I mean, if you want an obvious example, and this is not macro, but just go visit Tucson Mall during Semana Santas or during the Christmas holiday, and look at how many Sonora and Sinaloa license plates are in that parking lot. Yeah, when I was at the chamber, it was so funny. Sometimes we get folks that would come in, and I would see they'd have their truck loaded up with dishwashers or whatever, but they would actually unpack them in our parking lot and give them a couple of scuffs, so they wouldn't have to pay the duties going back into Mexico. It's like, oh no, it's used. Come on, you just came from Tucson
Yeah.
Appliance with a truckload of washing machines. Well, entrepreneurship. What can you say?
Well, I always appreciate your voice and
Thank
your
you.
thoughts, because you've mentioned a couple things. You were at the chamber for a long time, worked on that front, so you understand the economic development. You understand the importance of business community. You ran twice.
Thanks for bringing up that painful
Well,
memory.
well, but we can take it to you ran as a Republican, which is not an easy thing to do in the city of Tucson. You got within a couple hundred votes,
175.
175. Not that you're counting.
And yeah, in the citywide
In the
race.
citywide.
So 70,000 votes were cast in that race citywide, and I lost. I really feel for Sadie Shaw. When I saw that, holy cow, to come so close. Wow. But God bless her.
19 votes. And
Yeah.
do we have the official recount?
Yeah,
it's
it's done
It's
now.
all
It's
done now,
official,
so it's
yeah.
all over. Amazing. You go away for 4 days and you come back and you find out all sorts of new
Well,
stuff.
I think there was around 32,000 votes cast in that primary election. So that's still that's such a narrow mess. So I respect everybody who runs for office. I mean, for me, Ted, it was like a year-long root canal. But
There's no way you can criticize anybody that's willing to do
Yeah,
that. And that's a reminder that if you're the city of Tucson, voting is occurring right now in CD7, and it will start shortly for the general election for the city council. So that was the voice of Ben Buehler Garcia. He's going to turn around and from being an expert on issues, going to come back and be a guest after this show. So thank you for joining us on the Morning Voice. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're listening to The Morning Voice. I'm your host, Ted Maxwell. Matt Neely behind the glass. Tomorrow morning, Grant Kruger will come on with his food for thought. It's going to be a blend of politics and restaurateurs. You never know who you're going to get, but what I can guarantee you is Grant will be here fired up, ready to go, and a lot to talk about. So please tune in to Grant tomorrow morning. My
So
guest,
can I tell a real quick
story?
Dick Dale story?
Yeah.
So I saw him perform live here in Tucson. And back when I was involved in one of my greatest failures, minor league hockey, we needed a theme song for the team. And somehow I got his phone number and called his ranch. This guy answers the phone himself. And we just had a wonderful chat. He's like, yeah, sure, love to help. And then, of course, that never came about. But amazing talent, Dick Dale.
And for those of you who don't understand that connectivity, Dick Dale was is the producer,
King of the surf
singer
guitar, baby.
of surf guitar. There you go. Yeah, that was a good lead in.
So Ben, was that at Hotel Congress by any chance?
Was what at Hotel Congress?
With the show that you saw with him, with Dick Dale?
No, it was actually, what was that little venue across from the Green Dolphin down on South Park
The
Avenue?
Rock.
The Rock,
Yeah, okay.
So you could go into the Green Dolphin, spin a drink of the hour or a shot of the hour, and then head over and play at the Rock. You're going back a ways now,
Yeah,
BBG.
Let's not go there.
No,
Okay, sorry
we
to
won't go
interrupt.
there.
Just random access brain.
All right, from guest speaker Ben Buehler Garcia, we're going to move to Ben Buehler Garcia, host of American Warrior Radio. So a lot of people don't understand American Warrior Radio, which if you listen on the radio and you hear some advertisements for it, sounds like it'd be a nationally produced program. It actually started right here, Ben.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave Sitton, God rest his soul, who, folks that have been around a while recognize Dave. He was sort of he was a local media icon himself. He broadcast the U of A games, very generous with his time in the community. He was, like an MC everywhere. He never took a dollar or a dime for doing that for folks and for organizations. And he was the one, I don't know if you know the backstory, Ted, but he came to the U of A on a baseball scholarship with the intention of joining the Marine Corps when he graduated.
I did not know that.
He got hurt pretty badly playing baseball, and the Marines didn't want him anymore. So Dave was the first person, at least locally, to recognize the growing chasm of understanding between those who serve in our military and the civilian population out there. And the folks, so many people just, unless they've had military in their family or they've got some sort of connections, they just don't recognize the huge sacrifice that these people make on our behalf. So he's the one that first came up with the concept and started American Warrior Radio back at KNST is where they first got started. And then he moved to KQTH several years after that.
And it's been how many years since American Warrior Radio started?
So my very first broadcast. So when Dave died suddenly and far too young, I just had such a passion that these messages need to continue. I jumped in with both feet, knowing absolutely nothing about radio. And our first broadcast was on Pearl Harbor Day, 2013. So this December, I don't do math in public, that will be 12 years.
12 years. 12 years of you and Dave's sitting for numerous years before that. And Dave was an icon in this region.
Yeah,
Courtney's Courage, which is a charity I support really strongly. He was always the host and the MC, and he did it just out of the goodness of his heart.
And he did 3 shows. He did American Warrior Radio, and then he had another show called Daily Mail, MALE, that was to, help raise good young men. And then he also had a show about cancer, because I think he was a cancer survivor. Don't quote me on that, but do you know, Matt?
Yes, he was.
Yeah. Good dude. And I don't know. I think he was doing the show maybe 2 or 3 years before he passed away.
But you've been involved in volunteering for Initiative to Support Military Families for over 25 years. You talked about your time with the Tucson Metro Chamber, but you also ran the Military Affairs Committee there. You employer support of the Guard and Reserves, the USS Tucson 770 Club. I mean, I can go on and on of what you've done, but what you've done through American Warrior Radio to me is truly amazing, because you've brought stories to life. I mean, there are some stories that you've had on that were just amazing. And now you've got people like Roger Staubach running a commercial for American Warrior Radio. Lieutenant Dan is a huge supporter of American Warrior Radio. And there's just so much you've got. You did it out of the goodness of your heart because it was the right thing to do. What do you think about that decision now?
Well, I'm honored, and I tell you what, Ted, if you you got a radio host to shut up here. You're causing me to blush over here. It's it started off as just a weekend labor of love to one, because I had a passion for that. I never served. I never wore the uniform like you. So I consider it my duty to support those who do and who have, and also the first responder community. I never carried a badge. Um,
Yeah, Warrior is not limited to only the members of the military.
Military first responders and those who support them. That's where the Gary Sinises and the Lee Greenwoods and the Bo Derricks of the world come in. There's got to be a connection though to the military. You can't just come on the show because you're a celebrity. There's got to be a military or a first responder hook. But it was just a weekend labor love, kind of a hobby. And I subsidized it out of my own pocket for a number of years, because if people don't know that before I became syndicated, a lot of your weekend programming is brokered. Basically, I write a check to the station for 54 minutes of airtime, and then I talk about what I want to talk about. So in this case, it's military and first responders. So the real flashpoint came when I started to get inquiries from outside agencies outside of Tucson, movie studios, book publicists, national PR agencies saying, hey, we'd like to, we've got a guest suggestion for you. And then with the encouragement of John Justice, who was the drive time, daytime host there, and then some of my guests, some of my veteran entrepreneur guests, said, Ben, if you are committed to this, then you should commit to getting it to as many ears as possible. And that had never crossed my mind, Ted. And then shortly thereafter, I don't know if it coincidence or whatever it was, but then I got an offer from a station in Phoenix saying, hey, we've got some airtime if you'd like to buy it. So I jumped to Phoenix, which then led to an opportunity in Colorado Springs, which is a huge military market,
location.
maybe one of the top 5, and that led to 2 stations in Ohio, which led to a station in Missouri. So I was basically self-syndicating for that time, and I built it to
which self-syndicating means you're not making any money off it. You are working to try to survive.
Correct. It's a loss leader. Let's put it that way. And then Salt Lake came on board, so I'd gotten to 9 stations before Talk Media Network reached out to me and said, hey, let's talk about national syndication. And the interesting story about that is Josh Lang, who owns Talk Media Network, my syndicator, he was actually the producer for Dave Sitton at CAWCD when Dave first started the show.
Okay, that's an incredible connection.
Yeah, that's a wonderful, came full
That's
circle
good.
there. And the nice thing about, because there's other syndicators out there, but the nice thing about Josh was obviously he knew the product already because he was there when it got started, and he's a veteran, he's a former Air Force guy, so he shares my passion for the messages too. So from that, December 7th, 2013 to now, we're on. Well, it's kind of squishy, Ted. I'm learning a lot as I go.
You are, and I definitely want to make sure we get back to what people can find, and it's American Warrior Radio, all spelled out, AmericanWarriorRadio.com. How many podcasts do you have up?
Oh, gosh. We're probably approaching 700 now.
700 podcasts telling stories. Well, real quick, what are some of your favorite stories with members of the military?
I don't know if favorite's the right word.
The ones that you think if somebody's going to listen to a story, you want them to listen to.
Well, I most recently I had a fellow on, Quang Thanh, who's he and his family, except for his dad, got out of Saigon literally weeks before the fall of Saigon, came to the United States as refugees. His dad was a fighter pilot, so Quan wanted to be a fighter pilot, and then he visited the Vietnam Memorial, and it really struck me. He says, all these people who gave their lives to try and save my former country, I need to pay that back. So he became the very first American of a Vietnamese descent to become a Marine aviator. He flew combat. And then he went into the biotech industry, and he became the first American of Vietnamese descent to take a biomedical company public on a NASDAQ IPO. And he's written a book called Underdog Nation, and it is just absolutely wonderful. I'm on my second go through that book because there's so much great advice in there for other aspiring entrepreneurs. And 2 things that came out that I reflect on for what I'm doing with radio is, don't let others define success for you. You need to set, your own definition of success. And then he also talks about, so often success is putting yourself in the right position, in the right place for when an opportunity comes up. And I think I like to think of that as far as, national syndication for American Warrior Radio. Clearly, Mike Day, who
Your Mike Day one is
yeah,
remarkable.
that's by far my most downloaded podcast in all the years I've been doing it. And folks aren't familiar with that. Mike was a Navy SEAL. They were clearing a bad guy house. I think it was in Iraq. Mike was shot 27 times. Now, a lot of that went into his body armor, but he basically survived, dispatched the bad guys, cleared the house, and then walked himself to the evacuation helicopter. Amazing story. About 2 years after I had Mike on the show, the first time he wrote a book, I reached out to him and said, "Hey, Mike, you want to come back on, talk about your book?" And he says, "Ben, I'm not in that headspace right now. I'm going to politely decline." Well, 6 months later, he took his own life. And so those, the World War II vets, I've had 2 instances where I had a World War II veteran scheduled to come on the show. And at the time between we scheduled them, but before we could get their story on tape, they passed away. So, the World War II Korean era vets always go to the front of the line. There's another fellow who was a World War II vet who just passed away. He was part of a special group during World War II called the Ritchie Boys that were basically intelligence specialists, mostly expats. He happened to be a Russian of Jewish descent. And this guy, Ted, he was a poet. I mean, he would describe, he survived the Battle of the Bulge, the Battle of Hurtgen Forest, landed 4 days after D-Day. But the way he described combat, I don't mean to diminish this, but was almost poetic. Yeah. And just what,
he could tell a story.
Yeah.
And in this case, these stories are all reality.
Right. And that's the key. It's about storytelling. That's the power of the show, I believe.
So AmericanWarriorRadio.com, you go to the podcast page, and it is broken down so you can find the topics of your interest. You've got your World War II and Korea area, Vietnam, Desert Storm Forward, law enforcement, first responders, inspirational. Go to that website. Take a listen. And I think once you're going to get hooked on what he's doing. But you had a huge announcement about four months ago. And one of the things that led to you coming on here today is that local press here hasn't picked it up. Here's a local radio show that started and grew here in Tucson. You've talked about the syndication. You've talked about the work. But maybe one of your most important agreements was signed about 4 months ago. What was that?
Our program was accepted to be broadcast on the American Forces Network. And the folks, that used to be the Armed Forces Network. So,
Right.
if, people remember the movie, Good Morning Vietnam. Good Morning Vietnam. That's basically the same network we're on now. So they're broadcasting our content in about 160 countries and 200 ships at sea. And that's, being syndicated, and it's kind of squishy. Like I said, it's formats change, stations are sold, program directors get antsy, but the last satellite audit showed us on 143 stations nationwide. And then you add another 160 countries and 200 ships at sea. In the rearview mirror, I have to pinch myself and look back and say, man, how did we get here?
Oh, no, Ben, it's a phenomenal accomplishment. I'll tell you, the 9 months that I was deployed, it's actually was more than that. It's almost a year in Saudi Arabia. That's the only network we could get.
Right.
It was so limited. I mean, there was only 3 networks on the TV we could watch, one of them being AFN, and then or listen to on the radio. That's it. And for the folks on the ships, it's even more limited.
Right. And that's something I take. We're now in 12 of the top 25 markets. We're in New York. We're in Atlanta. But to me, the most important statistic is our signals now reach 90 military installations across
awesome.
the country. So that's the heart of why I do what I do.
Well, I want to thank you for doing what you do with American Warrior Radio. The fact
privilege.
that you carried on for Dave Sinton and are still carrying on and spreading the stories and the words of the people who serve us. That's what this show's all about. So I want to thank you for doing it. We're going to work on getting a little more local press coverage.
Okay.
This may not cut it. We got to get a little bit more.
Let's do it. Okay.
All right. You're listening to 1030 The Voice, your trusted local news and talk station. We'll be right back with Ben Buehler Garcia.
7:51. I'm Matt Neely on 1030 The Voice with a look at your traffic and weather. Injury crash, Oracle at Auto Mall Drive. Injury crash, Broadway at Sarnoff. And they're still working on traffic incident, Ina at Shannon. On your freeways, looks like they're slowing on I-10 westbound between Kolb and Valencia. I-10 eastbound slowing between Cortero and Sunset Links. Tucson weather, high today 100 degrees, a 20% chance of afternoon and evening thunderstorms, overnight low 73. 97 for your high tomorrow with a 30% chance of storms. Still a few clouds and a few thin clouds up above. It's 84 degrees in Tucson. Now back to the Morning Voice.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Morning Voice. I'm Ted Maxwell. My guest is Ben Buehler Garcia. We're going to switch hats on you, Ben. Amazing everything you've done with American Warrior Radio and your success. But you've also been an integral part of the team that puts on every year here the 9/11 Tower Challenge. With the contributions that you gain from it go to the 9/11 Tower Challenge Foundation. Can you just fill in the listeners to what this event is and why it exists?
You know, Ted, it's interesting. I just thinking about that. The first person who first introduced me to the 9/11 Tower Challenge was Dave Sitton. He was doing a remote broadcast of American Warrior Radio from one of the first climbs they had at 5151 East Broadway. So the 9/11 Memorial Tower Challenge, the gist of it is that we challenge people to climb 2,071 steps, which is the equivalent of the 110 stories of the World Trade Center towers. It first started off with just a small group of Tucson Police Department SWAT team members and some local firemen who wanted to honor their fallen comrades who ran toward danger on that fateful day on the 10th anniversary. And we've been going ever since. We've raised over $500,000 that we give out to local military and first responder charities where, 100% of the proceeds from the climb go to these local charities. So that, of course, always takes place on September 11th. This year, that'll be a Thursday. We do the climb down at the Tucson Convention Center Arena at 260 South Church Avenue. And folks can still sign up. It's only $50 a climber. And if you're like me and you're, getting up there in years with bad hips and bad knees, you don't have to do all 2,071 steps. Folks can walk around the concourse where it's flat if they want. The key there is to come out and help us raise some money. And then every climber also carries a lanyard with a badge, with a photo of one of the fallen with them, so they can see who they're climbing for.
And Ben, that's something that's really impactful. I mean, I'll never forget Katie and I doing the challenge during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And where you sent out the lanyards, you did. So we were doing ours in the hills of Oro Valley, and we had 2 firefighters with us. Mm-hmm. And 9/11 was a big turning point in our nation's history, I think, in a lot of ways. It was, for us, it was our Pearl Harbor, our generation's Pearl Harbor. But the farther you get away from it, I mean, 4 years ago now, people start forgetting. So what you do is incredibly important.
Well, the 20th anniversary was obviously big for us, but now, like I said, now we're going on 24 years. And Ted, and by the way, folks can visit 911towerchallengefoundation.org. You can register there. It's not too late. We can't maybe guarantee a T-shirt for you if you're coming in this late, but we'd love to have you. You can just make a straight-up donation. You can also register, as you mentioned, you can register to do the climb virtually. We had an Army unit in Honolulu was doing the climb with us last year. We've had people in Europe that do the climb and send us a video. So it's only $50. 100% of those proceeds go to these military charities.
You've got a great group of volunteers out there. And again, it's 911, the numbers, towerchallengefoundation.org. Please go there and make a donation or join us. I'm going to be there Thursday morning. Going to do the steps. It was always amazing to me walking, even when I was serving, I was in uniform walking the steps at the stadium, Arizona mm-hmm. Stadium, and to see the firefighters in their full battle rattle or their full gear. I don't know how they did it in the hot heat of September. I think that's maybe why we moved it indoors eventually.
Well, also with conflicts with the U of A Stadium, because we're not flexible on the date. It's always got to be on September 11th. Well, on occasion, September 11th falls on a Saturday. There's a home game in the stadium. So, yeah, but the TCC air conditioning is nice. The folks that do the challenge with us in Phoenix, they sent me a photo of a K9 handler was actually climbing the stairs carrying his dog on his shoulders. So it is very inspirational. And then the other thing I want to add, and you've seen this, a couple of years ago, we added an oath of enlistment because we realized that now the young people that are signing up to wear our nation's uniform weren't born on 9/11. and they're still doing this. So every year that passes, it becomes more important for us to have this memorial so folks never forget those brave people that ran toward danger. And then, of course, the military families who picked up the burden of the global war on terror. So 9/11 Tower Challenge Foundation.org, $50 to join us for the climb. Or you can just make a straight donation if you'd like. We're happy to have that.
And KVOI and Bustos Media are
Absolutely.
sponsoring
Yeah.
the 9/11 Talent
And we'll be
Challenge
there. We'll be doing some live cut-ins with Tom Moulton that Thursday. So the Morning Voice will be at the 9/11 Tower Challenge.
All right.
So, Ben, I can't say enough about what you do for this community, continue to do, both in your work trying to solve the housing problems, but with your support for all the men and women that serve our country and our region. Again, it's what this show is about. People, get engaged. Find something that you're passionate about, like Ben Buehler Garcia has, and then step in and support our community.
General, it's been a privilege. Thank you.
And it's always great to have you on the show, and I'm sure we'll bring you back often. Well,
I'll be
considering
around.
you're one of my guest hosts, between you and Matt Neely, the show couldn't survive if I left, at least my segment of it. So you're listening to 1030 The Voice, trusted local news and talk. Stay with us. We'll be talking to Karen Cesare about the Colorado River.
At 8 o'clock, with a look at your news headlines, I'm Matt Neely on 1030 The Voice. Tucson Little League families say city parks don't feel safe for kids to play ball. Parents report finding needles, armed individuals, and people passed out in bathrooms at fields from Freedom Park to Udall Park. Adam Wright, who leads Cactus Empire Little League, says players are warned not to enter restrooms alone. Calls to police often take more than 30 minutes for a response. City leaders point to recent ordinances banning camping in parks and washes, and some officials are pushing to add more Tucson police officers. Pima County Attorney Laura Conover continues to defend her plea deal with an armed man who intended to shoot up a school. Tucson police refuted her August 21st claim that they spoiled the case against Daniel Hollander by not properly Mirandizing the suspect by providing video evidence that they did follow procedure. Conover again defended her plea deal, saying concerns about how Hollander was questioned put a felony conviction at risk, noting even detectives had doubts about admissibility. Tucson police dispute her claims, saying they never received objections. Hollander, who was on a school campus with a loaded gun and knife, said he intended to shoot children and was sentenced to 18 months in prison plus probation. The Pima County Sheriff's Department has released new details about a deadly rescue on the Linda Vista hiking trail. Deputies say 2 women were found injured on Saturday. 53-year-old Lynn Lagergren was pronounced dead at the scene, while a woman in her late 60s remains in critical condition at a local hospital. Sheriff Chris Nanos said the women were inexperienced hikers and foul play is not suspected. Multiple fire, state, and search and rescue crews worked together to locate the women a short distance apart. Finally, the Vail Unified School District is expanding its early college program, giving high school students a head start while saving families money on tuition. Students take classes at Pima Community College for free, earning credits that can count towards an associate degree before graduation. Program Director Rayleigh May, a first-generation college student, said it helps break cycles of poverty by reducing future debt. The program is open beyond Vail, with students from Sahuarita, Benson, and Red Rock also enrolling. Families say it's opening doors to new opportunities. Tucson weather, increasing clouds today, winds out of the east, a high near 100 degrees and a 20% chance of thunderstorms. Overnight low 73, a 30% chance of storms tomorrow and a high of 97. Later on this week, daytime highs in the low to mid 90s and chances of rain increasing Thursday and Friday. It's 86 degrees under partly cloudy skies. Now let's go back to the Morning Voice, Civic Engagement on a Tuesday with Ted Maxwell.
Good morning and welcome back. You are listening to the Morning Voice. I'm your host, Ted Maxwell. Matt Neely behind the glass, keeping me on time, on target. The purpose of the Morning Voice Tuesday show is the engagement hour. It's to encourage everyone to get involved. We do have rights and responsibilities as we're a nation bound by shared values of freedom, liberty, and equality, and comes with that our responsibility. For some, that includes service to our country and or our community. I think Buehler Garcia was a great example of finding something you're passionate about and get involved. As is my next guest, Karen Cesar's joining us today. And when we talk water, you're going to see she has a lot of passion and a lot of knowledge. So Karen, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, Ted, I'm so happy to be here.
All right, Karen, one thing I do with my first-time guests, and you're the first time you've been on the show, is let's talk a little bit about your background. What brought you to Arizona, and what led you to get involved in the world of water through business and other endeavors?
Well, it's been a journey. First of all, my parents brought me here. I was born in Phoenix, so I'm an Arizona native. Actually, my dad was born in Prescott, and his mom was born in Phoenix before statehood. Her mom in Ireland.
Oh,
so
wow.
I claim third generation Arizona native, status.
Outstanding.
And grew up in Phoenix and ended up coming here to Tucson to go to school in 1979.
So you're a wildcat?
I'm a dyed-in-the-wool wildcat. My parents were both Arizona State people, so I grew up rooting for Sun Devils and then broke their heart. But they got over it eventually. And I got very lucky when I got here to go to school. I found a profession and a degree that I'm very passionate about, and that's landscape architecture. So back in the day, there was an undergraduate program, 5-year undergraduate program, and I got my first year of college under the belt and said, this is going really well, so let's just go all in with this degree. So I graduated with my degree, and I have worked as a landscape architect my whole entire career. So I have my own business. I had the opportunity. I've worked in public sector, and I worked in private sector, and 27 years ago, I had an opportunity to open up Novak Environmental. It's my firm. I was Karen Novak at the time, and now I'm Karen Cesare. And through that, I've just, been a small business owner and consultant and, used my knowledge on renewable natural resources and planning and all those issues to not only, like I said, do our projects that we do in the office, but that in a way led me to my passion around water issues. And I started, it goes way back into the 80s. I sat on the Citizens Water Advisory Committee for Tucson Water and actually sat on the SAWARA. There used to be an organization called SAWARA, Southern Arizona Water Resources Association, and they had an outdoor conservation committee. So I started working on that and really helped pioneer xeriscaping and low water use landscaping, worked on the first demonstration garden at Tucson Botanical Gardens in the late 80s. So I've spent my life here in Tucson working on water issues, and ultimately that led me to this opportunity.
So, can you talk a little bit about xeriscaping and the other changes you saw as you went through, your landscape business and what became important to this region?
Well, at the time, water conservation that we know today and what Tucson does so well was just a kind of an infant idea.
Everybody wanted grass still?
Everybody had grass in their front yards and their backyards, and the only plants you could buy at nurseries were high water use plants. And there was a sense that we really needed to start protecting our water resources and managing them and conserving our water. So that led to the idea of xeriscape, which is not zeroscape, but it's where you zoned your plants, you used low water use plants, you did some water harvesting, and you can create beautiful, lush landscapes that don't use a lot of water. And getting that message out was a big effort back in the late 80s, early 90s. Now I think everybody takes it for granted that that's just how we do landscape today.
So back then, obviously, you said things were changing. How do you think we compare where we sit today versus where we sat then on the water issues in the region? We'll stay specifically in this region.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think there's just so much more awareness. I think you have when something bubbles up as an issue, a community value, a community issue, it takes a while to raise awareness, broadly. And I think right now Tucson has just made amazing strides. And when I say Tucson, I mean all of Pima County, all the jurisdictions have recognized the importance of managing our water resources. And one of the areas we can control a lot is the outdoor water use. So, one of the statistics that you hear is today, the city of Tucson is using the same amount of water that they were using back in the 50s with, a huge increase in population. So our gallons per capita per day have, gone way down as everybody really works to, like I said, be very mindful and respectful of this water resource, and it's allowing us to continue to thrive and grow and prosper.
Right, and from the 50s to 70 years ago, I mean, we're talking 5-6-fold times the number of people in the region. But one thing Arizona's always done is take care of the water.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the most seminal moments in water in Tucson and in Arizona, obviously, was bringing the Central Arizona Project here to bring us a renewable water supply, a reliable renewable water supply from the Colorado River. And it, that goes back again, many, many decades, but it finally arrived here in Tucson in the early 90s, and I think 1993 when the project was completed here in Tucson.
I think that's what some people don't understand. You always talk about things. We hear about desal and pipelines. The Central Arizona Project started in the 60s. I mean, the concept,
yes,
I believe.
Yeah,
Mo Udall and some of the legislatures, our congressional delegation, they were working that first negotiation back that long ago.
Oh yeah, and longer ago from the Colorado River Basin Project Act in the early 1900s. But yeah, it got really focused in the 60s, and when Arizona was able to build this amazing piece of infrastructure. I mean, our canal is 336 miles long from the Colorado River all the way to Tucson, and the ability to get the funding and get it here is huge.
And 336 with a lot of that being pumping the water uphill.
Absolutely. We use a lot of power to bring that water uphill almost 3,000 feet here in Tucson.
So we've talked already a lot, and you can hear the expertise in your voice, especially when it comes to the Colorado River. But at some point, you made the decision that you were going to run for public office because of your passion about water. And you'd made the decision to run for the Central Arizona Water Conservation District Board, which a
Yes,
lot of people don't realize is actually a nonpartisan elected board
exactly.
for at least four. I think everybody's elected, but the ones who represent Pima County are specifically elected for that seat.
Exactly. Yeah, we are an elected body. Because we are a taxing authority. It's a 15-member board. 10 come from Maricopa County, 1 from Pinal, and 4 from Pima County. And I am wrapping up my second 6-year term, and it's nonpartisan and non-paid.
So when does that term expire?
It will expire at the end of 2026. There will be another election for the four seats here in Pima County, and I am intending on running again.
Well, there we go. Breaking news on the Morning Voice. Karen Cesare is going to run again for this seat. Actually, I was kind of hoping you'd tell us that today, but I actually didn't realize you expired in 26. So why did you make the decision to run?
Well, it. I had been, like I said, I had been serving on the Citizens Water Advisory Committee. I had been involved in water issues, and I served on several other community boards and commissions, Parks and Recreation, just being, as you said, but being active in my community. And through a series of kind of random conversations, it became known that I had this background in water, and there was going to be an open seat, meaning that one of the board members wasn't going to run again. And I was actually recruited or asked by the business community who was looking for a candidate to fill that seat. And it was completely unexpected. It's not anything I was thinking about doing until I got a phone call and ran. And as it would happen, I was up in Colorado when I got the phone call. I was walking around Lake Estes in Estes Park.
Beautiful park.
Beautiful park, beautiful lake, beautiful mountains. My sister and her family live up there. And I got a phone call, and I didn't know who it was from. It was, an unknown caller, but I answered it anyway. And the person on the other end of the line said, "Hey, we've been talking about you, and would you consider running for this seat?" And I had never, this was not in my my playbook or my program of things to do, but I thought about it. I obviously talked with my husband Jeff, and we spent kind of the summer thinking about it, and decided that yes, let's do this. And that was 2014.
And as I recall, it wasn't like you ran unopposed because there actually was, I think, 3 or 5 candidates running for the 4 seats.
Exactly, which made it a contested election. There were 5 candidates. The top 4 vote getters obviously win the seat on the board. And so I ran a campaign. I had signs. I had the whole 9 yards, and was very fortunate enough to be elected.
What was your biggest lesson learned about running for public office?
Oh, that, just kind of getting over your fear and getting over yourself, and the biggest lesson was if you want to do this, you have to put yourself out there, and you've got to talk to everybody. I was talking to people in grocery store lines. I was talking to people at the gym. You just realize that, the lesson was that if you want to run, you better be prepared to leave it out all in the field, as it were. And it was scary, but I had a lot of support from my husband, my family, lots of the community, the business community, and like I said, I was fortunate enough to win a seat.
Well, full disclosure, Karen is a member of the Southern Arizona Leadership Council. We greatly appreciate your involvement there. You work closely with the Tucson Regional Water Coalition, which is a coalition of business leaders that are interested in water as well. And you represent Pima County on the CAWCD board.
Yes.
So when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about that board, the makeup, why it's important, what you do, what your responsibilities are due. And before this hour's over, we'll talk a lot about how the flow on the Colorado is going right now. And I just got back from Colorado. It was a very interesting drive around through the mountains, taking a look at some of the water levels at some of those lakes.
Great. Can't wait to hear about it.
Oh, I'm not sure it's all good, but it is. Water is for fighting, whiskey is for drinking. There may have been a lot more fighting over water than there was whiskey drinking this weekend, but either way, it all works out really good. So that's Karen Cesare with us from the CAWCD, aka the CAP board, and we'll be right back. Stay with us on 1030 The Voice, trusted local news and talk.
At 19 minutes after 8 o'clock, with a look at your traffic and weather, I'm Matt Neely on 1030 The Voice. Traffic hazard, Grant and Wilmot. Crash at Irvington between Oakmore and Midvale Park Road. Injury crashes at Broadway and Sarnoff. Also Oracle at Automall Drive. And they're still working a traffic incident, Ina at Shannon. Taking a look at your Tucson area freeways, slowing on I-10 westbound between Craycroft and Valencia. And brief slowing on I-10 eastbound between Orange Grove and Sunset Links. Tucson weather, high today 100 degrees, 20% chance of afternoon and evening thunderstorms. Overnight low 73, set 97 for your high tomorrow with a 30% chance of storms. It's 88 degrees. Still a few thin clouds up above. Now back to the morning voice.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Morning Voice. That's Matt Neely giving you the traffic flow. Well, everything looks pretty good, Matt, for a
Not too bad.
Tuesday after Labor
Yeah.
Day. I mean, we'll see when it picks up. It's that time of the year. You never know what you're going to find traffic-wise.
We had a little bump the first week of school. Everybody's learning how to drive all over again.
Well, it's one thing. If you're out there listening to us, I'm glad you joined us on your drive to or from work. Keep it safe on the roads and the
So
infrastructure.
on a non-Tuesday, we're going to get you, me, and Keith up in the Bonanza, and we're going to fly around. We'll do an old school traffic report from high
that
up
could
above.
actually be fun.
Huh?
You're going to have to figure out how to do that. I would enjoy that.
There we go.
No, what trouble could happen out of that?
Yeah, what could possibly go wrong?
It would be wrong. Well, you're listening to the morning voice, 5 days of the week, 5 different hosts, 5 different topics, a little bit of politics spread throughout. Most of them. Tomorrow morning, tune in for Grant Kruger on Food for Thought. He's going to have Zeus Sanz, owner of the Taboo Latin Fusion Restaurant downtown Tucson on Congress. So that's I think he just confirmed Mr. Sons to talk about Latin fusion and your ability to get a little of that in downtown Tucson. There's no doubt food plays a huge role in our region. And if there's anybody to share it with you, Grant's the one. So tune in tomorrow morning with the Morning Voice. So I've got Karen Cesare, one of the 4 Pima County representatives, Mark Taylor, Pat Jacobs, and who just got appointed. The fourth,
And Justin Manuel.
I knew that. I looked it up last night. I didn't write it down. But he's got big shoes to fill because he got appointed for Sharon Megdal when she resigned because she'd been around for a long, long time.
Yeah, actually, even bigger shoes to fill. We lost a board member, Marie Pear 3.
Oh, that's right.
I'm
She
sorry
had taken
to,
over. No,
sorry to,
she
you
had,
know,
she
say
had
that,
taken
but
over for Sharon
she had
the last election.
Yes, our last
Sorry, Marie,
election.
that's-
Yes, yeah. No, Sharon served, you know, for 2 terms and was just a powerhouse, obviously, in water and recognized. And she was board secretary. I've followed in her footsteps now as board secretary. But we lost Marie, and Justin Manuel was appointed to fill her seat. And Marie had been working. She worked for Tucson Water. She worked for Central Arizona Project.
I think Marie's written a book, correct?
And she
on
wrote
water?
she wrote a
She had
book
written a
about
book?
yes, about the CAP debacle that we had here that longtime Tucsonans will remember. She was in the middle of all that. And so we miss her. We miss her expertise. We definitely miss
Absolutely.
her sense of humor and her smile. But Justin Manuel is a member of the Tanoatham Nation, and he actually is their director of water resources. A very knowledgeable person. We're very lucky to have him on our board, and he's been a great addition. And so the 4 of us represent Pima County on the board. And do our best to. We all work. Even though we're from Pima County, we all work together. It's a we work for the 3 county service area that is the Central Arizona Water Conservation District. So it's really important that we all work together to ensure that we continue to have our reliable and renewable water.
And I think that's a point there that's important. The CAP serves 3 counties.
Yes.
Effectively, it serves
Yes.
Maricopa, Pinal, and Pima.
Yes, that is the bounds of our district.
And so each county gets its prescribed percentage of the flow based on how much water actually comes out of the Colorado, correct?
Well, we all get Arizona gets its share of water, and our customers just get whatever allocation they have through the 3 counties, and all that has been set for years.
So when we talk a lot about the share of water coming from the Colorado, some of it, not all the water that gets released comes down through the CAP because some of it continues down the river to serve some of the downriver users.
Yes, it's all divided up. We have, Arizona has its CAP allocation or its Colorado River water allocation, and then of that we have that's 2.8 million acre feet. Half of that goes to the CAP and our customers. The other half it goes to what we call our on-river users in Arizona, and those are tribes and the Yuma area farmers and everything. A big chunk of it goes, obviously, California has an allocation, Mexico has an allocation, and Nevada even has a little allocation. And so the water gets divided up that way.
So the hardest part of people's understanding of water and the Colorado River is there's so many different entities. You hear, and they've all got acronyms, CAWCD, the CAP board. So you work for the Central Arizona Project, but you've got the director, Tom Bishotsky, the Arizona Water and Department, Resources Department. And he's Tom
ADWR.
Bishotsky, who does an incredible job and plays a huge role. And he's one of the few holdovers from the Ducey administration. He's a water guy. So you've got ADWR, you've got CAWCD, you've got the on the river users, and then you've got all the other water rights that exist through multiple different municipalities. We know we've got governmental, legislative requirements, and we've got groundwater and 100 years surety. We've got a ton of other issues. What's the role specifically of the board you serve on? 15 elected officials. What is your role and what are your responsibilities?
At its most basic, our role is to collect money and pay the federal government back for building our big, beautiful canal that brings us our water, and managing Arizona's share of the Colorado River. And everything else that goes into the Arizona water picture, everything you just talked about, goes beyond our district. We're one, we're a player, we're a major player in the water, scene, obviously in Arizona, but there's so much more, including all the groundwater and everything that DWR is responsible for. But at its nutshell, we are responsible for the policy, the planning, the operation, the rates setting, the taxes levying, everything that's needed to keep our Central Arizona project up and running and reliable.
So let's talk about that because that's a little history that will make the point. We talked about the negotiations on the CAP. Really was started back in the 60s, and the 93 water first started flowing. How you're responsible for paying for it. What were the negotiations? What did Arizona give up in order to get this? And how much money do we get? And how much money do we have left to pay back?
Right. Well, we had to, in order to get the federal government to, lend us the money to build the canal. California fought us initially, but ultimately through negotiations and all the former leaders that you mentioned, we accepted what we call our junior priority on the river, junior to California. And then that allowed California to support. They had a big congressional delegation at the time. We had a tiny one. And so that was what we had to do to get the money to build our canal.
And that junior position has impacted all the negotiations since.
Yes.
Even amongst just the 3 lower basin states. And we'll cover what the upper basin states are after we come back from the break. But 3 lower basin states, Nevada, Arizona, and Colorado.
And for many, many years, that position was basically pointed to as, we're junior. California could essentially we could lose all our water rights before California had to take any cuts. But things started changing a couple years ago with some of the more severe droughts and some of the lower levels in Lake Mead. And we had to layer on some different guidelines, started with the 2007 guidelines, and then we went to the drought contingency plan, which was 2019. And so that was 6 years ago, wow, California finally said, oh, we can't, we're all a region here. Economically, we're a region. Just functionally, we're a region. And California figured out that they couldn't let Arizona go dry. It would be bad for them, too. So they started agreeing to take some cuts at some appointed time in the future.
And that was a big part of this negotiation. So we've got about a minute left. Real quick, 30 seconds on why are we still paying back money and how much do we owe?
Well, we're still paying back money because it was a lot of money to build the canal, in the billions. I think we owe about, round numbers, about $30 million still, and we'll pay that back to the federal government. I used to think it was like a mortgage. We would pay it back and we'd own the canal, but no, they'll still own the canal. We'll pay it back, but they'll still own it.
And that's one of the challenges. And as we draw less water down, your rates actually go up because a lot of that, what we pay for in Tucson is to get the water pumped uphill. So the less water that flows through, those fixed costs don't go away.
Right. They have to be shared over a smaller customer base.
All right. That's Voice of Karen Cesare with the CAP board. I call it that because it's easiest. We will be back and we'll talk about what the flow on the river looks like on 1030 The Voice, trusted local news and talk. Good morning and welcome back. You're listening to the Morning Voice. I'm your host, Ted Maxwell, Matt Neely behind the glass, 5 days a week, 5 different hosts, 5 different topics. Please join us every morning and make your drive time radio easy and enjoyable. So my guest is Karen Cesare. She's a Pima County representative on the Central Arizona Water Conservation District, or the CAP board. So we talked a lot about the Colorado River and the amount of water that it does supply. It was a huge issue, expensive. The Congress had to approve it. But now the river, some people say it's dying. I don't think it's that bleak yet, but the flows definitely slowed down. So can you talk a little bit about the current state of the river and what your concerns are?
Yeah, absolutely. And we got to remember that at the time that all the allocations were handed out, over 50 years ago, it was a very wet time. The river had a lot of flow in it. And since then, we have a hotter, drier world. The river is smaller, and we know that we need to start figuring out how to share a smaller river. And one of the things that is happening is all the guidelines, everything that governs. They call it the law of the river, which is a whole amalgamation of court cases and laws and different things.
But the first compact was back in the early 1900s.
Yes, yeah, compacts, you name it. All the guidelines that we're operating under now expire at the end of next year, end of 2026, and so we're working. We, CAP, Arizona, Lower Basin, Upper Basin, everyone is trying to figure out what the future looks like after that date. And we've been working very hard. I know you are, you participate in the Arizona Reconsultation Committee, spinoff of the Drought Contingency Plan Committee, which was a broad-based stakeholder group in Arizona to try to help come to a consensus in Arizona first on how we're going to share a smaller river and what's happening. And it's really challenging, and this is where the junior priority concept comes in, because the state and the world is very different than it was 100 years ago when they were sorting all this out for the first time. And we need, Arizona is a huge state, big population, and it's, so we think that there's we need to take a look at that and consider that.
So Karen, one of the things that you hear about all the time down here, and the most of the citizens understand, is Lake Mead and Lake Powell are much lower. I mean, you can just see the marks in the land much lower than they used to be. And you hear about this potential dead pool. How is the flow of the river coming off what's a normal snowpack this year in the upper basin states?
Well, yeah, the river, the lake levels, and Lake Mead is our yardstick for the lower basin, Powell for the upper basin. They're at 30% capacity respectively. So let's just go back. In 2000, they were full. And 25 years ago, these reservoirs were full. Now they are very low. The current elevation of Mead is 1,055 feet, and a couple thousand, 3,550 feet for Lake Powell. But the river is smaller. A lot of the snowpack, even with a good snowpack, which is up in the Rockies, that's where the water all originates, the land is so dry that the first thing that happens when the snow starts melting is like a dry sponge. It soaks up the water. So even with a regular snowpack, runoff is lower. So it all cascades down, obviously through the reservoirs in the Colorado, the upper basin on the western slope primarily, into Lake Powell, and ultimately into Lake Mead.
And so is that a part of the challenge? Do the upper basin states get to determine how much is released out of Powell and from their reservoirs that they have up in Colorado?
Well, right now the releases are governed by the compact, and so they don't get to determine per se. They are supposed to release a certain amount of water. It's 7.5 million acre feet every year, or averaged over 10 years. 750 million acre feet. Yes.
Yeah.
And so,
and for the record, an acre foot is like 365 gallons, roughly 360 gallons. So that's a lot of water.
It's a lot of water. Think about a football field 1 foot deep, covered with water. So lots of water. But so what's happening now is the lower basin and the upper basin are trying to come together and find a path forward that shares a smaller river. And there's disagreement right now, and that no one, we are in disagreement, that's putting it mildly, with the upper basin.
So let's be blunt. is the Upper Basin willing to give up any of their allocation?
Not at this moment. Their position is that they don't have to give up anything, and all the cuts and reductions should be borne by the lower basin. Our position in the lower basin is everybody that shares the river needs to share in its health and its success, and everybody needs to also share in the pain of reductions. And those talks have been stalled for quite some time.
So we in the lower basin, again, lower basins, California, Arizona, Nevada, upper basins. Let me see if I can get these right. Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, and New Mexico.
Yes, exactly. And most of that comes from Colorado. Most of the use is in Colorado.
yeah.
But yes, that's the division in the basin of the Colorado River. And so there's been going on, lots of meetings, lots of talks, lots of new ideas. It used to be that shortages and reductions were geared by the elevations in Lake Mead. And right now we are in a Tier 1 shortage, and it was also announced that we'll be in a Tier 1 shortage again next year. We've operated at a Tier 1 shortage for the last 10 years with those reductions. So we're comfortable. And the reason we're not in a deeper shortage is because Arizona primarily and CAP and our customers specifically have left large volumes of water in Lake Mead to keep those levels propped up to keep us from driving into the lower tier shortages. So we've done a lot. City of Tucson's done a lot. So many people, and
The tribes have left a lot of
tribes
water.
have done a lot, and through different mechanisms. But a lot of it's been compensated. So in lieu of taking water that they are entitled to, they've left it behind in exchange for being compensated, and it's worked. But that's just been the kind of the bridge or Band-Aid to get us to this reconsultation phase, which we're in right now and needs to conclude by the end of next year.
Now, do the upper basin states already use all of their water?
No, they don't use all their water. They have.
Do the lower basin states lose all their water?
We
Use all their water.
Yeah, well, in a use it or lose it. Arizona, I'll speak for Arizona. We take and use all of our Colorado River allocation, whether we use it directly through our customers and deliver it to tribes, cities, industry, agriculture. Not anymore, of course. Pinell lost agriculture with the last go round of cuts, but. We take it, and if we don't use it directly, we recharge it, we bank it, we store it for the future. So that's one thing that we've been doing for a long time.
Okay, and so one of the things that you talked about, Pinell, lost some for ag. The legislature last year passed an ag to urban bill that allows some of the farmers to turn their land, sell their lands, and the water rights that go along with it to developers. Does that reduce the amount of water we use? Is urban build versus agriculture build, which ones make a better user of water?
Well, the whole concept of this is and that ag to urban bill has been touted as the biggest thing, the biggest piece of legislation in water in Arizona since the Groundwater Management Act in the 1980s. And yes, it's recognized that urban development uses less water on a per acre basis than agriculture. And this ag to urban bill it solves a few problems. It helps reduce some water consumption. It also helps helps contribute to solving our housing shortage that we have, and farmers that wanted to be able to convert and develop homes. We need homes. We need people. We have a housing shortage in Arizona. So that whole bill is allowing all that to happen. And a big piece of that bill, and one thing you haven't, in all your acronyms, you didn't mention the Central Arizona Groundwater Replenishment District, or the CAGRD, which is another function of CAP, and that's a way that home builders, developers can meet the Groundwater Management Act if they don't have a renewable water supply or belong to, like City of Tucson Water. So ag to urban has a component that we worked very closely with the legislature to make sure that the impacts to CAGRD would not be onerous and hard to achieve. So it's, like I said, it's a three-dimensional chessboard of water.
I hope folks are getting all excited by these acronyms. I'm joking on that one. It's tough, but it is important because right now we have a 100-year water supply. If you're going to build, you have to meet that 100-year water supply. And if it wasn't for CAGRD, that would be very difficult to do for a lot of the developers, and that just puts us into a further hole on the housing front.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's again, we've got multiple needs. Sometimes they seem at odds with each other, but they can all work together. And the ability to provide housing and address our housing shortage, as well as meet having developers meet the 100-year assured water supply is all tied into to the CAP, our renewable water supply, and the CAGRD. So there's a lot riding on this, and I said there's just so many people in our state that are working so hard to ensure that we will have reliable water in the future, because the CAP going to zero and dry is not an option.
So recently, Director Bushotsky was part of putting together a new plan that would take away from the normal way of measuring how much is released. Normally, like you said, it's been based on the levels of the two reservoirs. But now we're talking about trying to make it more of a consistent flow based on literally the flow of the river. Can you explain that real quick?
I can try. It's
It's hard.
Oh yeah, yeah. In a nutshell, instead of just having a static yardstick of Lake Mead determining shortage and cuts, the concept of flow of the river really looks at the actual water, passing over Lee's Ferry, and in a 3-year average determines what percentage, the proposal is what percentage of that water will come to the lower basins and what will remain in the upper basin. And the discussion points are ranging from 55% to 75, 80%. And there's a lot of play in that. And as you can imagine, the lower basin wants a higher percentage of flow coming to us, and the upper basin, doesn't see it that way. They think that it should be 50-50.
So what type of role does the CAP board play in trying to come up with alternative sources?
Well, I got to tell you, the CAP, the board and the staff, who are brilliant, are spending a lot of time and resources, trying to come up and model all these different scenarios. This isn't just a throw a dart at a dartboard and come up with a number. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of scenarios that are run, hydrologic models. What if this? What if that? What if we do this? And really, our CAP staff, working very closely with the Department of Water Resources, are the ones that are coming up with the ideas. And if one idea didn't work, let's try another. And currently, flow of the river is the idea that's on the table. And it's a process or a scenario where everybody would take a share of the cuts. And that still goes back to what our main message is that the lower basin alone, and certainly CAP alone as the junior priority of the junior priority, you cannot balance the whole river on the backs of CAP and our customers.
So last year in the state budget was included $1 million for ADWR in case litigation was going to be a factor. This compact expires in 2026. That like you mentioned multiple times, there's been augmentation to it, but in 2026 it expires. What do you think is going to happen in 2026?
Well, it's anybody's guess right now. There's been a lot of conversations, amongst and between the basin states, and nothing has come out or emerged as a consensus position. And ultimately, there's the clock is ticking, and if we don't come together as whether we come together as the 7 basin states or we come together as sort of the term they're calling it as a divorce, it sounds harsh, but maybe that's appropriate, where the lower basin and the upper basin just go their separate ways, but still with an agreed upon share. If those don't come to a consensus position that can go forward, the federal government, the Bureau of Reclamation, is going to step in from the top down, and they're going to dictate how this is going to go. And every time in the past with water in the West, everyone's come together. It's not been pretty. There's been a lot of work done, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. Like you said, the whiskey's for drinking, water's for fighting metaphor, but we've all been able to do this, and we still are holding out hope that that's going to happen, but the time is ticking.
Well, Ted Cook, the former boss of the Central Arizona Water Conservation District, has been nominated by President Trump to become the head of the Bureau of Reclamation, who is that federal arm that makes these decisions. So do you think he'll get through confirmation?
I certainly hope so. I got to work with Ted for his whole entire time. He was general manager of the CAP. He's a brilliant man. He's a fair man. He is a knowledgeable man, and I couldn't think of a better person to lead the Bureau of Reclamation. And so we're just we're hoping to have his confirmation, his nomination move forward. And I think once we get a permanent commissioner there, I think hopefully things will start to happen more. It's kind of hard with this interim situation.
And I'm personally going to hope that the president was sending a message by his appointment of Mr. Cook. I've had the opportunity to work with him a lot, and I do think he understands the whole of the river, not just our part versus your part. So
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, clearly he's from Arizona, but he is like I said, he's a fair, smart, knowledgeable man of the most highest integrity. I think the world of him, and certainly hope that he is able to and willing, again, back to he retired.
Right.
He's willing to come out of retirement and serve in this role if confirmed. So we'll keep a good thought out for him.
well, we will hang on to that. We're going to take our final break now, and then we'll be back with Karen Cesare to talk a little bit more about impactful voices in our community. You're listening to 1030 The Voice, trusted local news and talk. Stay with us.
At 8:53, with a look at your traffic and weather, I'm Matt Neely on 1030 The Voice. Crash at freeway at St. Mary's Drive, a traffic hazard 1st Avenue at Fort Lowell, and a traffic incident River at La Choya. Still working an injury accident at Broadway and 4th. Light traffic on your Tucson area freeways. Tucson weather, high today 100 degrees, 20% chance of afternoon and evening thunderstorms. Overnight low 73, 97 for your high tomorrow with a 30% chance of storms. It's 90 degrees in Tucson. Wind Tucson coming up right around the corner with Kathleen Wynn. Now, back to the Morning Voice.
Welcome back to the Morning Voice. I'm your host, Ted Maxwell. Karen Cesare, thank you so much for being with us and talking water. I know you've had an incredible loss recently. Joe Cesare, your father-in-law, was an impactful force. I just want to let you close with a couple words about him.
Oh, thank you, Ted. Yes, I'd really like to honor a great man in this community, someone that I was fortunate and blessed to call my father-in-law. That was Joseph R. Caesar, who passed away last week at the age of 87. And many people knew him. He grew up. He was a South Side boy, a self-made man, and became one of the Tucson's most successful developers and businessmen. He built 5151. Your previous guest Ben talked about the first tunnels to tower climb at 5151. He built that high rise in the 70s. Many developments: Star Valley, Rio Verde Village, Rivergate. I said you'd be hard pressed to drive around Tucson without driving by something he built without knowing it. And he was a force. He was a wonderful person, and he was one of the people that really truly built Tucson. He was also one of the businessmen that helped us bring CAP to Tucson in the 70s. So, I count him amongst the likes of Don Diamond and Bill Estes as the pioneers that really did so much to build our community. And we're, the family obviously is grieving a big loss. But I'm pleased that I'm here this morning and get a chance to honor him so publicly on your show.
Well, I greatly appreciate you doing that. Joe had a huge impact on the community. Like you mentioned, it's got to be, it's always an awful thing to lose anybody in your family, but especially somebody who really this community lost. It wasn't just him. It wasn't just your family that's losing him. He had such an impact in Tucson and will always be remembered. And I wish the best for you and your family at these times. It's always difficult, but we're in good shape.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that very, very much.
All right. I greatly appreciate you being with us. It's Karen Cesare, our Pima County representative to the CAP board. And look forward to having you on in the future as well when we know a little bit more about the flow of the river.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
All right. Matt, that wraps up the show
we
today.
We got Grant tomorrow.
Grant's tomorrow. Kathleen Wynn will be on immediately after this.
Yep.
And then you're going remote down to the 9/11 Tower Challenge.
Yeah, that'll be on a week from Thursday. A great show today. The podcast will be up shortly. Ben Buehler Garcia did a great job talking about American Warrior Radio and the Tower Challenge, 9/11 Tower Challenge, and Karen Cesare. Good show today, Ted.
All right. You've been listening to The Morning Voice, 1030 The Voice, trusted local news and talk. Stay with us. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you next week.